Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Going Over Big Time podcast. I am Mike Charlip, and I am joined by Alan the Cantastic. And today we are going to go over our top 5 wrestlers of 2023. This has kind of become our tradition, I guess. We do the top 5 wrestlers and then we do our top 5 matches. So this week we will be doing our wrestlers, and next week we will be doing our matches. So, Alan, how are you doing today?
Uh, I'm okay, Mike. I've been just convalescing at home because I caught COVID over this past week. So I am still technically sick, but I'm feeling better than I did a few days ago.
Well, that's at least okay. I hope that you feel better. And yeah, so this year in particular for wrestling has been, in my opinion, very good as a whole. There's been a lot of great performances and performers throughout the year. And I have a feeling that we might uh, be pretty close on most of them, which is not really unexpected. I think last year we had a lot of the same as well, just because it, it 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 comes down to like the performances and the I guess preference at this point. But um, so before we get into our top 5s, we both put down some honorable mentions. Why don't you give us your honorable mentions?
So my honorable mentions, and I wish they were on the top five, but it's only hard because the perhaps it was because they only Well, okay, I'll give you my first one. Trinity,
Mm-hmm.
formerly Naomi.
Yep.
Reason I put her in honorable mention and not in the top five is she really came back just around time of Slammiversary, so June. So there's only like the last half of the year, and also most of her title defenses were against Deonna Purrazzo, and not that I'm complaining about that, but
Mm-hmm.
you know technically speaking, if you just wrestle the same person like 2 or 3 times, and then it's hard for me to try to like rank you higher, even though she would be the first person to make Deonna Purrazzo um, lose by submission in in Deonna's tenure at Impact Wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
as being a former 3-time Knockouts World Champion. It's a testament to the comeback she reached from being like off of TV like a year ago after she and Sasha Banks walked out of WWE to her just to her coming to Impact Wrestling, soon to be TNA as of next month.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a testament to how she rebuilt her career to being in a top spot in a major wrestling promotion. The other one I put down is Rhea Ripley, and I really thought she would be in the top five, but considering that um, her reign as women's world champion has only been memorable by her win against Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 39 when it was still the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Changed over to the women's world title to because she was a Raw wrestler. Um, I would say like because it's hard to put her in the top five because she had not faced any opponents of like real credibility. I would say, she had a very memorable defense against Selena Vega in Puerto Rico at Backlash, and that was I would say that was important for the Puerto Rican or Hispanic audience. But other than that, it was a no brainer as to between Selena. who is Puerto Rican, and Rhea. It was going to be Rhea. And it was her first title defense, right? So, she had squash matches against Natalia. One lasted just 70 seconds against Natalia, who's been with the company for decades now and
Yeah.
veteran, a former champion.
So I think Rhea spent a lot of the first couple of months of her title reign injured, and because of that,
Right. Yeah. That
she
too.
was
I
kind of
mean,
just in a manager's role,
yeah.
and
She
it,
had. I mean,
a leadership role is more. Uh,
yeah. I guess one memorable thing she did this year was to guide Judgment Day through like a lot of bumpy
yeah,
situations, from like this internal conflicts with Finn Balor and Damian Priest, and leading them from like almost kind of coming to blows to becoming tag team champions, to you would hate this, but guiding Dominic through two North American title reigns probably without
yeah.
her
Well,
help.
and the story of that was like every time that he didn't have backup, he lost.
Yeah, exactly.
So
He lost his title at Deadline because she was not there.
yeah,
But back to her own work.
yeah.
I think her most memorable title defense was at Crown Jewel, when she faced off against Nia Jax, Raquel, Zoe Starks, and Shayna Baszler in a fatal 5-way, right? Yeah, so
Hmm.
that was
That was a fun match.
that was a fun match. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
All right. So for mine, and I don't know if these are surprising or I mean maybe they're expected, but so the first one I have is Seth Rollins. Um, I think he just missed out on like the top five because I mean, he's had a great year with matches defending the belt, um, the the World Heavyweight Championship, and he's been carrying Raw on his back, literally. I think what it came down to was the stories that he was telling, especially in the Shinsuke feud, just uh, didn't hit with me. Um, and the matches ended up with questionable finishes, but he still put on a hell of a run so far with this belt. And the match he recently had with Jey Uso was very good. The match he recently had with Sami Zayn was very good. Um, but yeah, I think he just missed out on my top five because I wasn't floored, I guess,
Hmm.
by his performances or by the performances in total.
It's interesting you brought up Seth. I I put him as my number three.
Well, that's. I mean, you
I
didn't have
mean,
to tell us that
I
now.
would.
You could have brought that
Uh,
up when you got to it, but
okay, I guess we'll go back to it later. But yeah, okay.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think he's still having a great year regardless. I mean, like I said, he just missed out on my top five, so it's not like I don't think he had a good year. But and my other one is Orange Cassidy, who also just been obviously was on a tear with the international championship for a very long time until he lost it to John Moxley. Then the unfortunate uh, um, John Moxley getting hurt at Grand Slam, which I was there for, and I could kind of see what was going on. It was very so they pivoted and gave the belt to Ray Phoenix in that moment, and then Ray Phoenix had to drop the belt, so they just give it back to Orange Cassidy, and he's once again just having great matches. And his rematch with John Moxley was great, and I was very surprised that he actually won that match because I think a lot of people expected John Moxley to have a longer run with that belt and fully expected him to just win it right back. But Orange Cassidy just continues to just challenge whoever he wants and beat all of them until I guess they get to another story where it's undeniable that they need to beat him. Um, I don't know who that is right now, but I'm sure it'll happen eventually. But yeah, he just recently had a good match with Rocky Romero on Rampage. He had a great match with Brian Keith. Um, and yeah, he's just been defending the belt every chance he gets and putting on a show. So, uh, but yeah, the people I have in my top five, I think just had better years. So, yeah, those are my honorable mentions. So, why don't you give us your number five?
My number five is Swerve Strickland.
Well, I could tell you that I have the exact same one.
Okay, that's all right. That's good. That's good. We're keeping the trend going.
Yes.
Uh, I obviously put it. I put him at number five because I think. Well, I think mostly things picked up at Wrestle Dream, but looking back
Yes.
at Swerve's year 2023, she was hitting into it strong. Beating Wheeler Yuta, AR Fox, Brian Pillman.
Hmm.
Um, April, he joined the embassy and then he created the Mogul Embassy because and then from there without that we would not get his like iconic entrance with like Prince Nana doing the dance and
Hmm.
everybody kind of once you have stuff like that you really get the crowd going, right? Very memorable feud with Darby Allin based off of their roots in Seattle. And this is happening around this time that uh, Nick Wayne debuted with the company as he reached the legal age of 19, I guess.
Eight.
Um, 18, sorry. Yeah, it's a little different in the US. But
Yeah.
yeah, so he had like very memorable matches with Darby Allin, culminating at All In. Even though, but he obviously lost, but it was a coffin match, so it was a no
Hmm.
brainer. No, but there were also like other matches that were very memorable as well. So like during around the time of Forbidden Door, I think, he had the debut at Collision, losing. It's a losing effort, but it was to Hiroshi Tanahashi. By the way, the new, I guess, on-screen president of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I
Uh,
don't know if it's on screen or actually.
I think he's actually the president, but I guess like both,
Yeah.
whether it's on screen or off screen, he's the actual president. Um, Strickland, he so at Wrestle Dream, he started a program with Hangman Page, which I guess really started at Wrestle Dream. Had a little help from his buddy Brian Cage, but he still beat Hangman Page in Seattle. Um, I mean, during this run, during this feud, he would said he was going to become the first Black AEW World Champion, and at this point, I believe him. So
I do too.
yeah, you have him like unfortunately, his boys lost the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions. That's not really on him. In fact, he did nothing in
Well,
that
they
area.
just
He
won them right.
almost
They
yeah,
just
but
won
that was
them right back.
yeah, they run them right back. So it was almost like almost like not a
Um,
factor. But I think the biggest moment of his 2023 for Swerve was the Texas Death Match at Full Gear.
of course.
You cannot um like just I don't even know how to. Now that I'm starting to talk about it, it is very hard to discuss. I mean, this just carried over from the Wrestle Dream match, and then it just kind of escalated this feud to the point where Swerve, his motto is like, "Whose house?" He's like, apparently it went from Swerve's house to Hangman, your house, because he actually literally went to Hangman's house,
Hmm.
in a very whether you believe it was disturbing or unsettling, he got to the point where he was like looking over Hangman's baby's crib.
Yep.
Of course, people will be wondering like, where's the mother? Seems like negligent parenting, but
Yes, we have
but
talked
let's
about this.
but to the Texas Death Match, critically acclaimed, received the rare 5-star rating from Dave Meltzer.
Hmm.
The first 5-star match in Strickland's career, as I am told.
Yes.
Um,
Earlier in the
well,
year, he actually almost had one in April because he competed at Triple Mania 31
uh
in
huh.
a four-way match against Vikingo, Commander, and Rich Swan. This match kind of goes under the radar, but I saw it and it was a hell of a match. It was 4 3/4, but if you haven't seen that match, I highly recommend it because it was great. It was a great match. Vikingo successfully defending the AAA Mega Championship, of course, considering he is still the champion to this day.
Yeah. But that match was the match of the Texas Death Match. Probably received a 5-star because of just graphic, gory stuff, including Hangman at one point cutting Swerve's forehead open and drinking his blood like some
Well,
fucking vampire.
it wasn't even just because of the goriness.
I
It
mean,
was
there's also
because
staples, barbed wire, tables, and all the stuff.
it
I
was
mean,
because the story called for it. The man went into his baby's bedroom.
yeah,
That is something that you do not do, and Hangman had every right to want to kill this man.
yeah. And
Literally,
I mean, the thing that more reflected that part was Hangman taking his I guess kids' baby drawings and then
yes,
stapling them to Swerve's forehead or his
yep, a
neck or
lot of
something.
a
Yeah.
lot of memorable moments in this match, and I mean I can echo pretty much everything that you're
I
saying
mean,
because
minus a pizza cutter and like a fucking flaming table. Like this
yeah,
match had like every type of hardcore gore imaginable.
yeah, and
And now as of this recording, Swerve is in the
the
finals.
Continental Classic,
Yes,
which is
he
also
yeah, the
just
finals of the Continental Classic. He's on the cusp of actually becoming a triple crown, modern day triple crown champion of being representing Ring of Honor, New Japan, and AEW. So
yeah.
yeah, hell of a
I
year without
I
holding
think
any titles yet. So
yes. So I think that this all of this is has been the catalyst for him to finally get either a international run at some point or to win this tournament because he is not going to be AEW champion just yet, but he will be. I think definitely will be at some point in 2024. And even if Samoa Joe is a short reign, because I think Samoa Joe is winning that belt, but yes, he has to be the champion at some point, and I I think that um, he's been absolutely killing it to to the point where he's undeniable now. And we've said it numerous times throughout the year. He is a main eventer now. He's going to be a world champion. Um, so yeah, I like I said, I'm on par with you. This is also my number 5. So I think that he has all the tools to go higher in the list in the following year. And I think I'm up in the air if he's going to win this tournament solely because I think they really want to do Moxley versus Kingston in the finals. But
that would
yeah, I
yeah, that would make sense.
because the whole point of this was for Kingston to be against the odds, and I think he's just going to win the whole thing. But that does we'll talk about that another time. So yeah, since we had the same number 5, why don't you give us your number 4?
Well, my number 4 is probably for somebody who was long overdue in becoming a world champion this year after spending 20 years and basically becoming the foundation for a lot of the way a lot of modern wrestlers have come up through the ranks, and that is Alex Shelley, the
Okay.
current Impact and going into January the TNA World Champion. Alex Shelley, of course, one half of the Motor City Machine Guns, one of the most famous tag teams in wrestling. Like almost 2 decades, never having become a world champion. Got a world title shot the year before against Josh Alexander, but um, this year really took off at against all odds in I think it was June or yeah, it was June, defeating Steve Macklin for the world title. I would have thought it was a little surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, if the opposite had happened, I would have probably it would have been likely I put Steve Macklin at number 4. But yeah, so actually winning the title was a little surprising at first, and then but I would say it's been relatively solid. Didn't rank him higher because there's just obvious reasons, but
Yeah.
defeated Nick Aldis at Slammiversary. That was Aldis's last match with the company, and then he also defended against Brian Myers. And at Multiverse United, the sort of joint show with New Japan, he
Mm-hmm.
beat Tanahashi. And then at Bound for Glory, Shelley defeated against defended the title against Josh Alexander, who was the man who beat him last year. And the most recent title defense he had was against Jonathan Gresham. Now that's a very solid portfolio of guys you've
Mm-hmm.
like held back uh, in terms of your title run. So I would say very successful.
Yeah.
I didn't rank him higher because there were guys that are coming up that I will mention
Uh-huh.
that have obviously had I would argue probably better success rate. Obviously, I mentioned one that you brought we
Yes.
uh, differed on, but yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's well deserved after like 20 plus years being an impact at you know elsewhere like
New
Ring of
Japan.
Honor, New Japan, having been such a tag team guy all this time and being
Mm-hmm.
able to redefine yourself um, at
I
this
mean,
rate.
he had two very career-defining tag team runs with either Kushida or
Chris
Chris
Sabin,
Sabin.
yeah.
So he's always been a tag team guy, but yeah, I mean him finally getting that opportunity to be the top guy, I think was something that he deserved. The Motor City Machine Guns as a whole, both being world champions, is well deserved. Um, and yeah, I think they will go down as probably the best one of the best tag teams in Impact slash TNA history, solely because of that. I was surprised that Josh Alexander didn't beat him, honestly, because I fully expected that Josh was just going to get the belt back from coming back from injury.
Mm.
But yeah, he's still going on a hell of a run, and I mean, I bet Moose is going to beat him.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
Yeah,
technically speaking, Moose was the last person to be called TNA World Heavyweight Champion. So, um, I mean, that was like the sort of like quote unquote unofficial TNA World Heavyweight Champion. That was the thing he just found and he was carrying around for a year.
yeah.
Um, yeah, number 4 is Alex Shelley.
All right. Well, my number 4 is somebody I think that a lot of people would say has been carrying WWE in a sense. He's had the best title reign out of anybody and consistently defends his championship, consistently has good matches, and that is Gunther. So Gunther now is the longest reigning intercontinental champion of all time, and he is closing in on the overall accumulated days as champion, which is crazy to think that he could do that in one reign. But um he's just been, like I said, the most consistent champion on WWE television. He's been the most consistent champion in other than Orange Cassidy's first international title reign. He's been like the most consistent champion in all of wrestling. He beats everybody that uh that gets put in front of him. He had amazing matches. The triple threat at WrestleMania, of course, was his best match by far with Drew and Sheamus. His matches with Chad Gable, his recent match with Bronson Reed was really good, and that was something that we don't usually see out of Gunther because usually he's the biggest guy in the match.
Yeah.
So he's going into this match against arguably the biggest guy on Raw and having another banger. And yeah, nobody really knows who is going to beat Gunther uh, because I guess that person just hasn't stepped up yet. And you could say that it should have been Chad Gable. You could say it should have been Sheamus, but then you wouldn't have the longevity of this reign, the the importance of this reign, because the Honky Tonk Man needed to be put behind us. I think everybody agreed that that reign just that even though he was the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, he never defended the belt. It wasn't a memorable reign. The most memorable thing about it was that when he lost it to Ultimate Warrior. So it was time to have somebody else in that spot, and rightfully so. He's been the best champion on WWE television in the last year, and yeah, I really want to see how they're going to book him going forward because I've obviously everybody's heard speculation that he wants that Brock match. Would Brock Lesnar want to hold a mid card championship? I don't know, but
Yeah.
if he, uh, I think if he faces Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, he needs to beat him.
It's like it's like Brock ending the streak, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
uh,
it's almost at the level.
ending another streak, right? So I wouldn't want that, obviously, but I mean, I do want to see that match solely because I think people kind of got it in their heads that that's the match that Gunther needs to have, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, at this point, there's very little like left for. I mean, I don't. Yeah, like you're right. Who's gonna beat this guy? It's very hard to tell. Like they did Drew McIntyre already. They're veering Drew in another direction, probably for
yep.
the better. Um, because
Sheamus's time has passed.
yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, we really want to see Sheamus like be Intercontinental Champion, but I'm sad to say, like, I don't know when Sheamus is coming back. So, and we don't
And
know,
he's on
right?
SmackDown.
And he's on SmackDown also. Um, I mean, you could probably argue like guys like Bronson or Chad, even Johnny Gargano or
Tommaso
Tommaso.
Ciampa, I forgot to mention that match. That was also another great match.
Yeah, but he has this just domineering presence, and it's like you look at him, it's like this huge man, and it's like who the fuck is gonna beat this guy? I mean, you got the only person that I can think of on the horizon is Brock Lesnar, and it's not like
Yeah.
Brock needs this title.
See, I would feel I would like it better if somebody you wouldn't expect is going to beat him, like like if Ricochet came out of nowhere and just finally beat him, because like he won this belt from Ricochet,
Yeah.
obviously pretty handily, but Ricochet is great and always has been, but is it? I guess people would argue is it believable that Ricochet could beat Gunther, but I mean, if Pete Dunne can do it, if Tyler Bate can do it, then I think anybody can can beat Gunther. Um, so yeah, I think that it's going to be very interesting what happens going forward with him. Obviously, I think he's going to go into the Royal Rumble. I don't. Last year he was the Iron Man, obviously going from beginning to end. So I wonder if maybe they'll uh, have him come in later or something and still be at the end, or if he'll even be in it at all. But maybe that's where we get the first encounter between Gunther and Lesnar, and they like eliminate each other, which I would prefer because I don't want Lesnar anywhere near the ending of the Royal Rumble. But um, yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens next for Gunther. So that is my number 4. You gave us a teaser, I guess, of your number 3. So uh, why don't you?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I put. Although now that you mentioned Gunther, and I'm like, I don't know why I completely forgot about the dominant reign he had this year. He would have. I guess I would have also kind of tied Gunther at number 3, but now that the cat's out of the bag, I put Seth Rollins as my number 3, only because um, Seth is the first champion of the title that he's currently carrying, and I think he's done some of his best work that I've seen in the last several years. You know, we I'm trying to remember all of Steph's prior characters, like dating even back to the Performance Center era of
Mm-hmm.
Monday Night Raw, when he just looked like some deranged religious fanatic, and that just kind of evolved. Like at first, I thought he was just some goofy laughing character, and now it's really gotten over with everybody, right? Like everybody's kind of like singing the song to the point where if some other guy in another company is doing a curb stomp, people just start just
Yep.
humming at him. Um, so yeah, I mean, all because Cody Rhodes didn't win at WrestleMania. We got the establishment of this World Heavyweight Championship. It's like the 2023 version of the old big gold belt, right? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they had this. I guess it was have started around in May. In order to, Rollins won a triple threat match first of all, defeating Damian Priest and Nakamura.
Yep.
And then he faced Finn Balor, who won a similar triple threat match um, that same night, and then that allowed him to go to Night of Champions. And I think that was in Saudi, wasn't it? Yeah. And then on
Mm-hmm.
this, and then even though this title was a Raw title, this might be one of the reasons why it's number 3. He's number 3 because if this is supposed to be a Raw title, it's kind of hard for me to envision someone like AJ Styles of SmackDown winning this belt and
Of
then
course.
thus continuing the.
That's why I hated the predictability of the tournament.
Yeah, but still, it was Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles, quite a quite a
It was a
matchup,
great
right?
match.
Yeah,
It was a great match.
yeah,
But yeah, the WWE seems to have this issue with not being able to make their tournaments predictable. Like
yeah,
they're doing the same thing on SmackDown right now. Obviously, Kevin Owens is winning, so
yeah.
it's just
It
like
is nothing. It's not. You can't compare it to the Continental Classic at this point because it's a little
no,
unpredictable at
because
this
you have
point.
no idea who's going to win that
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. No, nevertheless, Seth has had
Yes.
like I guess the unpredictability stuff was made me rank. Oh, you know what? Oh boy. In some sense, he probably should have been ranked lower, but
Mm-hmm.
it was because I'm just using the whole factor of it being a brand new title and how Seth has carried it through this year. You know,
I
he
understand.
actually I mean he actually went to NXT and defended it against Braun Breaker, and he's also
Mm-hmm.
had successful defenses against like Finn Balor, um, and I know you didn't really look at the whole Shinsuke Nakamura feud with any positivity, or well, not as positive as I would say it is, but I mean, this was the first time I've actually gotten a little more interested in the Nakamura character or his
Well,
persona since he kind of went dark a little bit and went a little
yeah.
more
I mean,
Great Muda heelish type, but
my analysis wasn't really
yeah.
reflective on Shinsuke's performance. My analysis was reflective on the fact that the story was stupid because Seth beat him handily, and then Seth was like, "Oh, I want to face you again. Challenge me right now, even though I'm injured." And Shinsuke said no.
Okay.
That makes zero sense. And then they have this last man standing match where Shinsuke is literally throwing everything at Seth. Literally everything. And Seth is getting up every time. And then Seth just wins. It made zero sense.
Yeah, and I think that was a little hiccup in this whole reign, but
That was the sole purpose for him not
yeah,
being in my top five.
yeah, okay. I mean, nevertheless, I think Seth did rebound and like beat Drew McIntyre at Crown Jewel, and he recently
Yes.
beat, I think, Jey Uso as well, and I think he had a match with Sami Zayn too.
Yeah, I talked about those. He had
Yeah,
a
yeah. But
had a
anyway,
great
I
match
don't.
with
I guess.
Jay.
Yeah, I guess
Great
my
match with Jay. Great match with Sammy. Gonna have another great match with Drew on January 1st.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I put Seth as my number three. Although if I change my mind, like right just a second, and put Gunther as my number three as well, like as a tie or even as just a complete switch over, I wouldn't mind.
well,
Like, yeah.
don't make me my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Uh, so my number three, and I think uh oh it was very hard to so my number two and number three were very difficult to discern where they would go, but my number three is MJF, and that is solely because of the his title reign as a whole and the story they've been telling throughout um, has been great. And I think that he just missed out on my number two solely because when I get to that, you'll understand why. But um, yeah, just this story as a whole and all these matches that the Bryan Danielson Iron Man match was one of the best matches of the entire year. Um, Everything that he's been doing with Adam Cole has been great, injury or not. Um, Samoa Joe match at Grand Slam. Um, the one hiccup, of course, is the Jay White match. Um, they could have did so much more, and they went with an injury angle, which maybe is because he's hurt for real, which is fine. But I just did not like what they did instead of having an actual match. Um, which they could have worked around the injury. They could have did something else. Um, but what they didn't work. But uh, as a whole, MJF's title reign has been on fire, and the recent months of this Devil storyline has kept people very intrigued, which is something that wrestling is supposed to do. You're supposed to want to know where this is going and want to know who this is and all of that stuff. And I think MJF does a hell of a job of selling everything, whether it's the promo, the match itself. He's just amazing at everything. And I fully expect that he's not leaving. I fully expect that he's already signed and he's just not telling people. Um, because he's been on fire to the point where it's undeniable at this point. And I mean, you can't forget like he had that hell of a match on a random collision against Kenny Omega, and the Adam Cole match at All In was great. The yeah, the every match that he's had pretty much the the AW Tag Team Championship match they had against FTR, which people I think forget about because obviously the world title's kind of been at the forefront. But yeah, I don't think you can deny that MJF is probably the biggest star in AEW right now. Um, Having everything kind of centered around him, and other than as we mentioned, the Continental Classic, which has kind of given him the opportunity to heal up a little. Um, Not to mention, let's not forget the Four Pillars match was very good. The story going into it was not, but the match was amazing. So yeah, MJF is my number three. Um, and yeah, I think we are gonna. I think we're finally gonna find out who the devil is, either at World's End or right before. Probably at World's End. I think maybe we'll find out who some of the minions are on the Dynamite right before.
Yeah, there's a they have a tag title match for the Ring of Honor World Tag Titles on Dynamite, I think, against two dudes. Who knows who they are?
Yes. People have speculated, obviously, but I mean, I am sticking with my thought process that it is the Kingdom and Wardlow.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, we'll see about that. Obviously, we will. I mean, we'll probably talk about World's End probably the week after.
yeah.
We we'll figure it out. But yeah. So that's my number three. Alan, what is your number two?
My number two is Will Ospreay, and
Oh.
there's a reason why. Yeah, we're gonna get to number one and my
Mm-hmm.
number one in a moment. But I put Will Ospreay because it's really the first time I've seen Will Ospreay for an extended period in the calendar year, and I've been really impressed with his work. He's really also on the like one of my favorite wrestlers is AJ Styles because I always see AJ Styles as very multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could, it looks like AJ Styles has like almost three or four different finishers. Um, a while ago I saw Sheamus as like that too, but that was probably several years back. But Will Ospreay seems to have a very diverse style of like doing things, and like it looks like he could like probably pin you in a couple of different ways. But I've been really impressed with the matches he had, especially first of all, it was the match at Forbidden Door when I saw him live in Toronto versus Kenny Omega. He beat him for the IWGP then United States slash United Kingdom Championship.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand that he had he had a similar like banger back in Wrestle Kingdom this January against Omega at that time too. I think Omega at that time beat him for the U.S. title, and then Osprey got it back at Forbidden Door.
That is correct.
And then also, of course, probably the biggest match in Will's career at this point,
Yeah.
All in London. Obviously, probably not the best match of all the matches he's had, but I mean, it's Chris Jericho. No offense, but
Mm-hmm.
had to carry that pail of water a little bit. Uh, was involved in some six-man tag team matches because he has kind of this alliance with Don Callis, but you know, it is what it is. But I think the biggest moment in Will's career at this point that put him at my number two was that he is signing with All Elite Wrestling come the new year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he's just finishing up his commitments at New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yep.
And this is probably one of the times when a New Japan match is a little more predictable. And the triple threat match for this new, I don't know what we call it. I guess it's New Japan's version of the international title because it's like people have been like went from like the U.S., the U.K., and then David Finlay broke into pieces. So it's like
Yes.
now they need a new title.
It's called the New Japan Global Championship now,
Oh,
right?
okay. Oh, okay. So you have this triple threat match coming up in Wrestle Kingdom with Will Ospreay, David Finlay, and John Moxley. And two of those folks are either in All Elite Wrestlings or not going to be a full time New Japan person. So it
Yeah.
makes the outcome a little too obvious. I would be surprised if they went a different direction. But I think, yeah. But I think like Will's top moments would be the Forbidden Door match, the All In match just for his own hometown credentials and signing with AEW. I will also throw in his dates with Impact Wrestling. The match we had with Mike Bailey kind of just was just like
Amazing.
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 It was just
Amazing.
I'm so it's just still a blur. I can probably go watch and watch it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what they
Yep.
did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had a very good match with Josh Alexander. Of course, he beat Josh at that time as well. And
Yep.
at the relaunch of TNA, he's gonna have we're gonna have see Osprey versus Alexander part 2. So
Mm-hmm.
that's very optimistic as well. But yeah, I put Will
They
Osprey.
also just announced, if you haven't seen their first encounter, there's a wrestler in, I believe, Progress named Michael Oku, who has been their world champion for a while.
Uh huh.
They had an amazing match in 2022, and they're having a rematch coming up, I think, in end of February.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, that should be another amazing match. I think he's going to have down the line. Um, but yeah, I mean, a little bit of a spoiler. I'll talk more about Will Ospreay a little later.
okay.
But
But yeah, I put Osprey as my number 2.
all right. Well, my number 2 is probably not surprising, considering um, he's just consistently one of the best wrestlers in the world. Consistently has great matches, and I continue to say that I don't think he's ever had a bad match in AEW, and that is Bryan Danielson. So Bryan Danielson obviously spent a lot of this year um, on the sidelines, which is unfortunate. Which, and I think it plays into why he is gonna stop being full time after the next year. But when he was on TV, he was consistently having one of the best matches on Dynamite or on pay per view than pretty much anybody in AEW. Um, we talked about the Iron Man match with MJF. That was absolutely amazing. Um, but even going further back than that, the match with Timothy Thatcher, which was kind of out of nowhere. His match he had with Roosh, um, the obviously the Anarchy in the Arena match with the Elite, which people love also. But his matches with Okada, probably not as good. His match with Okada, they had a tag match also, but the singles match he had with Okada is evident of how much he loves wrestling, because he basically breaks his forearm in this match from a diving elbow, which nobody really gets hurt from. Shatters his forearm and then continues to wrestle for the last 11 minutes of the match, and still puts on a pretty consistent performance, making Okada submit. It it, it was a great performance solely because of that fact. Um, Going from there, he returns in this one of the probably the best strap match ever, literally ever, with Ricky Starks. Then he has a Texas Death Match with Ricky Starks, another great match. Um, the match with Zack Sabre Jr., the match we all kind of wanted to see previous years. It was supposed to happen at Forbidden Door the first year, and then he got hurt during that. But we get this match, and the whole story of this match was who is the best technical wrestler. And they had one of the best technical matches that I've ever seen. And then Zack Sabre Jr. was not satisfied with the result because he didn't win with a technical move. He won with the running knee to the
Mm.
face. And that made me believe that they're going to have a rematch at some point, I hope. Um, but that I just was in awe of that match. Was one of my favorite matches of the year. Um, Then he would go on to have a great match with Swerve, then have a great match with Christian. I mean, like, he's just consistently putting on the best match. And then you have this Continental Classic where even before that he had a great match with Andrade, but then they had another great match in this tournament, which Andrade beat him, which nobody saw coming, and that was the best match of the entire tournament.
Let's not forget that he's basically wrestling with one eye during this whole
Oh
thing.
yeah, because he broke his orbital bone in that match with Andrade over a freaking tie up.
Oh my god.
Literally, he like these injuries that are happening on like the simplest things, and it's unfortunate, but he's just coming back and continuing to fight, and like, yeah, and he's fighting in this Continental Classic with one eye the whole entire time, and yeah, been it's been amazing, everything that he's been doing, and I am very intrigued about the Continental Classic as a whole, as we've talked about, but I don't think he's going to win his block final. Um, I fully believe Eddie Kingston is going to be the one to do that. Um, and yeah, it just and he's going to be having a rematch with Okada on January 4th, which I'm fully. Wrestle Kingdom is going to be very interesting. Um, but yeah, I'm fully prepared for that match. Hopefully, they have a even better match than the Forbidden Door match. And yeah, Brian Danielson is my number two. So, Alan, give us your number one wrestler of the year.
Well, my number one wrestler is, I think it was ranked by you already, and that's MJF.
Ah,
And
okay.
you outlined a litany of his accomplishments during this past year. Managed to. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but yes, like the match he had with Brian Revolution, that was just crazy. Well, it wasn't like at that was crazy to that point, because I just was like, I was just so impressed with the physical conditioning that he had, um, I guess, put himself through. And I'm just trying to remember just even a few like a year or two ago that MJF was already a physical specimen, but he wasn't like to this extent. Like I didn't see him like this jacked up at that point, but he went all through an hour and more, and against like probably one of the best technical, well, probably one of the best wrestlers in the world. Uh, yeah, the match at Double or Nothing, the Four Pillars match, that was amazing as well. Um, yeah, the storyline was sort of like here and kind of all over the place. And of course, I think I put MJF as number one also because I just included his his like not in the ring and the mic work. I really found the whole thing he developed with Adam very compelling. At first, them being like adversaries, to them becoming tag team partners unwillingly, to them becoming friends, and then kind of friends. Like MJF wanted to be Adam's friend, and Adam was reluctant, and then got to the point where they just built up this friendship, and then you just unpeeled back layers about Maxwell Jacob Friedman, the person, right? It wasn't just about the character, the kind of scumbag. He went from being a scumbag, an asshole, becoming the people's asshole in a sense. Um, yeah, and I just felt that going into Wembley at All In, probably the biggest crowd in wrestling history, for them to culminate that program like that was it was an unexpected conclusion, because everybody thought somebody was going to turn on somebody, and it didn't happen, and they just continued the friendship. And then if Adam didn't like get that sprain and then break his ankle. I'm pretty sure things have grown very differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it really compelled me, I guess, in the latter part of this year with the whole devil stuff. And then, but I also didn't like the Jay White stuff, to be honest, because the whole Challenger stealing the belt thing has been kind of overdone a little bit.
Yep.
And when it's done, I just feel it very. I guess I have a very traditional sense. I'm like, yeah, why the hell isn't management in the back telling Jay White, yeah, that's not yours, give it back. So why,
Yep.
like you just openly condoning like theft at this point?
I
What are you
mean,
doing?
it's a very simple process. Hey, if you don't give the belt back, you don't get to challenge for it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, if you don't get the belt back, I'm fining you $500 a day or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I agree. The match with Jay White really probably didn't need like a injury angle. That was confusing at best, and to have like, yeah, I mean, we talked about this before in another pod about our, I guess, yeah, when we did a review of Full Gear, I think it was just
Mm-hmm.
like, why would you like approve of Adam Cole, who's on crutches and in a cast, to go down the ring, and then you have your world champion who looks like he's still walking under his own power, and then you throw in like 20 security cards plus a couple of members of the roster to try to prevent him from going. It's just that was just
Yep.
confusing. But other than that little hiccup, this whole Devil storyline has been very compelling. Yeah, the matches with Samoa Joe as well. Now, sort of this sort of frenemy alliance with Samoa Joe in order to just like stave off like potential threats, even though the Devil guy is still hanging. At the end of the day, if this turns out to be Max himself, and he turns back to being a full heel, would not be surprising.
I
Um,
hope that that's not what it is, because if it is that, then
that would be a waste, because let me pivot to another reason why I think he's number one. He's gone and really represented his community in a way
yep.
that it's not been seen in, I
Mm-hmm.
think, a long time. You know, a lot of
I agree.
nobody really thought. When you think about it, nobody really thought about Jewish wrestlers. You know, other than like, really the last person I could really think of, and I don't mean to repeat myself, is like Bill Goldberg, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody really thought of him as a Jewish wrestler because he was just a big bald badass dude that just
Yep.
speared the shit out of people.
Mm-hmm.
And portrayals of Jewish people in like media and um, pop culture has not always been kind. Uh, Very compelling and interesting that he brought a lot of his traditions on TV screen, like the whole
Yeah.
rebar mitzvah thing.
Yep. And
Like the
then
whole, yeah, he did that in Winnipeg up here in Canada,
yeah,
and he did this whole
and
ceremony in the back,
that's
and I was like, what is that? That's
and
an
that
interesting thing.
kind of added to something that happened during the Jay White feud that people
Yeah, the
were
whole that was
were,
unfortunate, and I
were
don't know
not
if that was
were
deliberate,
not
but
very happy about, which I
no,
understand.
yeah, but
Obviously, MJF would have to approve that, I think, and
yeah,
he probably did. So I understand why
yeah,
he
not
probably.
everything's gonna work, but I think overall he's been like, yeah, like I think it would be disappointing if he just went back to full heel after all this sort of goodwill he kind of
And it would be
organically built up, right?
also it would bring back vibes of higher power Vince McMahon stuff, which
It was me all along, you assholes.
yeah. So they should not do that solely for that reason.
I mean, if it turned out to be Tony Khan, then that would be the only
Well,
like
no, I
that
think
would make it
people.
even stupider.
No, not Tony Khan. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, no.
if the whole story's been built around going after MJF, and then it ends up being MJF, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, people have been speculating whether it's maybe Jungle Boy because all this glass is being used.
I think that that's just a misdirect.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really cool to see like MJF representing his community. I mean, he just got inducted into the Jewish Athletes Hall of Fame or something, so
Yep.
that was pretty cool. But yeah, overall, like in terms of just storylines, in terms of like, I mean, I'm not saying the matches were of caliber of Will Ospreay, but they were like some of the best matches I've seen come out of someone in a mainstream wrestling company. And I think combining the storyline stuff with like, on screen programs with like Adam, Samoa Joe, various other this devil thing, it just really, and all obviously the public persona that he's built up, it's just made MJF for me the number one wrestler of the year in 2023.
All right. Well, I mean,
I
it,
think I know what your number one
you,
is.
you you know what my number one is. My
Yeah,
number one is your number two.
yeah,
It's Will Ospreay because uh it. I mean, I've been saying it all year. There's nobody who's performed on the level that he has comparatively at all. Nobody. He's consistently putting on the best match on every show that he's on. He's consistently having the best match, and he is easily in the prime of his career and easily just getting better and better with every match. And he obviously he started off the year with probably the best match of the entire year, easily, with the Kenny Omega match at Wrestle Kingdom. And then they followed that up with the Forbidden Door rematch, which was just as good, if not better. But even with all of that, he's also had great matches with the. If you didn't watch, obviously, I don't think that you did, but if for the people listening, if you haven't watched his G1 match with Tetsuya Naito, that is just evidence of how good Will Ospreay is, because they had an amazing match, and then towards the end, Will Ospreay basically gave himself the Destino because Tetsuya Naito was like out on his feet. He basically carried Tetsuya Naito to winning the match, literally, and it was amazing. Um, they had he you mentioned the match with Jericho, which was very good. Um, his match with Mirafuji was very good. I highly recommend that if you haven't seen it. Will Ospreay spent a lot of time during Forbidden Door talk about how Mirafuji influenced his career, and then he went to Noah and had a match with him, and that was almost a 5-star match as well. His match with Yota Tsuji, 5 stars. His match teaming with Takeshita and Guevara against Jericho, Omega, and Ibushi, almost a 5-star match. His match with Zack Sabre Jr., his match with Mike Bailey, as we mentioned, Josh Alexander, the Shota Umino match, also one of his best matches of the year, hands down. Just the guy is the best wrestler in the world. There's no questioning that, I think, in my opinion. And he's coming to AEW full time in end of January, and he's going to have all these fresh matches that he's never had before. He's, as far as I know, I don't think he ever had a match with uh Malachi. Oh well, no, he probably has faced Malachi Black in the UK, but he hasn't faced this Malachi Black. He hasn't. If he faced Andrade when he was younger, he hasn't faced this Andrade. He he hasn't had. He's going to have more matches with Jay White. He's going to have matches with Bryan Danielson. Hopefully, he's going to have. I mean, more frequently, I would hope, matches with Kenny Omega, or you would build to them. But like, there's so many matches that he can have that can be amazing, and he's just going to continue to get better. I just think, will be a world champion in AEW one day. Maybe not this coming year, but he will be, and he's just going to keep getting better. And the way that he's been able to continue to change his style and just adapt to his opponent is, I think, evident of how good he actually is. And I can't say enough about Will Ospreay. He, hands down, I think he's been my match. He's been my wrestler of the year since March, and that has not changed, and it he's just amazing. So I think now that we have both given our top fives, before we get out of here, who are some people that you think we should look out for in 2024?
Well, hands down, Swerve Strickland
Of course.
one. Uh, I would definitely keep an eye on Will Ospreay as well, as you mentioned. He's starting his AEW uh, tenure in January. Also, I would keep an eye on Adam Copeland. He's here now in AEW. There's a lot of matches that are on the
Yeah.
horizon for him. I mean, he's even mentioned fighting Okada, so that's how broad the options are. Um, who else do I keep an eye on? Honestly, like I want to keep an eye on Nick Wayne
Mm-hmm.
because there's got to be something there. I mean, you don't sign an 18-year-old kid who has decades of his career ahead of him,
Yeah.
and there's got to be something there. In terms of women, oh, excuse me.
Oh boy.
Like Billy Starks, she had an amazing match at Final Battle.
Yep.
Another one of those situations where I'm like, why isn't she the champion at this
She should
point?
have won. She
Yeah.
should have won.
And I'm like, there's way more there than her just being Athena's like minion or lackey, right?
Yep.
Um and as for like in WWE and elsewhere, geez, I don't know, man. Um
Jesus.
um
I mean, you got the warning at the beginning. Alan is not feeling well.
yeah. I guess I would look at CM Punk at this point, see what happens. I mean, who knows, right? I mean,
Sure.
he's back now, like who knows what happened. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. You go ahead.
uh. So yeah, I mean, I'm the people you mentioned, but like I'm really interested to see how Kyle Fletcher's going to be this year. Um, we don't know how long Mark Davis is going to be out, so Aussie Open is kind of off the table right now. But he just won the ROH television title. He's I guess going to be on ROH more consistently, which is not doing great at the moment, but it just keeps having great matches. He had a great match at Final Battle in that survival match. Um, so I think he's going to be somebody that we have to look out for in the coming year. Um, but yeah, I mean, Carmelo Hayes is probably going to be full time main roster any day now. Um, uh, Same thing with Braun Breaker. Um, it's weird that both of those guys are still in NXT, to be honest. But yeah, you mentioned Nick Wayne. I really want to see more out of Luchasaurus. I feel like he's kind of just been the guy that follows somebody around for too long and needs to do more. Obviously, they're building to something because they planted the seeds of him turning on Christian, and now they kind of just left it alone for a while because Edge beat the shit out of him, Adam Copeland, and yeah, I want to see more out of Luchasaurus in the future. I want to see him possibly win like a TNT title again, or go after the international or something. I just think the guy is too good to waste. He's so athletic for his size, and I think we're finally going to get more out of Will Hobbs this year. Um, I don't know what that means for this Callis family business with Kenny Omega not being around. Um, but yeah, I am very intrigued because we haven't really talked about this too much, but 2024 is going to be very interesting for contracts because a lot of people are coming up.
Yeah, well, as of yesterday of this recording, a whole bunch of a whole bunch of people released by WWE 90 days ago, they're now free agents.
Oh, with that said, Mustafa Ali, hands
Yep, he's
down,
already he's already
watch
booked
out for
dates
that
up to
guy.
March. He's already booked dates up to March. He's coming to my area in March, so
Yep. He's
I'm
having
surprised he's
matches in.
still called Mustafa Ali.
I think he was using that before.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think he was using that before.
No, it's just
But
that it's not his real name, so I was concerned that it's
I
something.
mean, he doesn't want to go too roots, I guess, with his name.
No,
So,
I guess. I mean, let me see.
but yeah, he's already got so many matches booked. He's facing Gringo Loco. He's that's gonna be crazy. He's yeah, he's got a lot of matches already. Like he was fully prepared for December 21st and to announce everything because he's been waiting for this moment to finally show everybody what he can do and what people were missing out on with WWE just not using him and
Yeah.
not using him to his potential and not treating him like the talent that he is. And he's finally going to get that.
Yep.
So yeah, I am very excited for his 2024. And yeah, I'm interested to see who. Honestly, I'm interested to see who leaves certain companies and goes elsewhere. Um, we've talked about, I mean, off air about the possibility of Becky and Seth going to AEW.
Oh.
That is more of a possibility than ever right now. Um, the possibility of Kevin Owens possibly going to AEW is a possibility now. I don't think he will because Sami Zayn is staying, but uh, but yeah, and I mean Ricky Starks. People are wondering when his contract is up and if he'll follow Cody to WWE, and it's very
I mean,
interesting.
I mean, as of just recent news, we're not sure if Cody will sign an extension, right? So it's
Oh,
likely he will, but there's the possibility that's still
I
open.
think he will not if he loses at Mania. That I fully believe that.
Does he
It,
need to sign his extension before Mania or
I don't
after?
know. I don't know. But
That's
I honestly I would hold that over WWE if I was him.
right, right, yeah.
I would this is what I came back for. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm here for to win that belt that he's holding. And if it doesn't happen, I'm leaving. Is Cody that kind of person? I don't know. But if I was him, that's what I would do. Because Cody brings in eyes. Cody brings money. He's selling merchandise for whatever, no matter what you think about his current run, because I'm honestly not a fan of the run that he's been on, especially this year. That's why he was not mentioned.
Mm,
The year he's had has been very subpar,
yeah,
and that was very evident. And I think solely because he lost at WrestleMania is why I feel that way. Um, so yeah, if he does not beat Roman this year, I would leave. But that's me. I don't know him that, and I don't know what he's thinking, but that's just how I feel for him.
mm,
That he should have won last year, and the fact that he didn't was a travesty, a literal travesty.
yeah,
Because I mean, and we haven't talked about Roman too much today for obvious reasons. He's only wrestled 5 times for the entire year,
yeah. It's
and that is not good for
well,
your
he's
biggest.
appearing. Well, he appeared on the last couple episodes of SmackDown, so he's showing up again. So,
Well, that's because it was taped.
well, you at least you're watching.
I didn't watch it.
Oh, okay, he didn't. Okay.
No, I wasn't home. I didn't watch
Oh,
anything
okay.
yesterday.
Right. Okay.
But no, I stand by that I have not watched wrestling in on Fridays in 2 months.
Wow. Okay.
Um, I watch Rampage when I feel like it.
Okay.
But yeah, so that is going to do it for us on this one. We will be back, I guess, next week to discuss our top 5 matches of the year. And yeah, continue to support the show and follow us on everything. Go to our linktree /going over big time podcast. That is where you can get every single way to listen /watch the show and support our social medias, as well as like us on Facebook and everything like that. So that is it for me, Alan. What parting words do you
Don't catch COVID over the holidays
have?
if you can help it. But otherwise, everyone stay safe. Have a happy holidays, and we'll see you we'll see you next week for our top 5 matches of 2023. And hope everyone have a great 2024 going forward.
And as always, watch the wrestling that you want to watch, not the wrestling that everybody tells you to watch. That is going to be it for us. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.